Hello, friends. Think about your typical afternoon. Maybe you've just finished mowing the lawn on a humid Saturday in Georgia. Or perhaps you're standing at the kitchen counter preparing a Sunday roast for the grandkids. You sit down, kick off your shoes, and you notice them. Those blue, twisted, bulging ropes snaking up your calves. You think to yourself, well, I'm just getting older, or maybe I should have worn better sneakers back in my factory days. You might even laugh it off as just a cosmetic eyesore, something to hide under long pants, even in the July heat. But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit of ignoring those veins is actually a hidden, ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine? I'm not trying to scare you, but I need you to understand what is happening under your skin right now. Take Bill from Pennsylvania, a retired foreman who spent 40 years on his feet. Bill saw those veins, but he was more worried about his lawn than his legs. He didn't realize that inside those bulging vessels, his blood wasn't flowing. It was swirling like a dark, angry whirlpool. Imagine your blood, which should be flowing like a crisp mountain stream, suddenly turning into thick, stagnant sludge. Think about the valves in your legs. They are like tiny, fragile French doors that are supposed to snap shut to keep blood moving up toward your heart against gravity. But in your legs, those doors are warped. They are hanging off the hinges. Instead of surging upward, your blood is crashing backward, pooling in your ankles, stretching those vein walls until they are paper thin. This is vascular failure. Does this sound familiar? Listen to me closely. This is about the very real risk of a piece of that stagnant sludge breaking off and traveling straight to your lungs. We're talking about a pulmonary embolism, the kind of medical emergency that leaves your family staring at a six-figure ICU bill while your 401k evaporates into thin air. Bill felt that sudden sharp pain, the panic of calling 911, and the doctor's stern warning that he was inches away from losing his leg or his life. In today's video, I am going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There is a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the words "strong" and "free" in the comments section below to support our community. Now, let me tell you about Brenda. Brenda is a 52-year-old real estate agent living in beautiful, sunny Orlando, Florida. You know the type. She is a total firecracker. She is out there every single day showing luxury properties, walking on those hard marble floors and burning up the pavement. And because she is a professional who needs to look the part, she is doing it all in 3-inch heels. She is a grandmother. She loves her Sunday BBQs, she never misses a Saturday morning football game, and she has worked her tail off to build a decent 401k for her retirement. But for the last few years, Brenda noticed something. When she took off those heels at night, she saw these blue, bulging ropes snaking around her calves. She told herself it was just a vanity thing, a part of getting older. She bought some heavy-duty concealer to hide them and kept on going. She thought it was just a cosmetic nuisance. Friends, listen to me closely. She could not have been more wrong. What Brenda didn't realize was that her body was screaming for help. Her typical American lifestyle, the long hours standing, the high-sodium takeout lunches she ate between showings, the pressure of a commission-based job, it was all creating a ticking time bomb inside her legs. The heavy, aching feeling she felt at 5 p.m. wasn't just tiredness. It was the sound of her vascular system beginning to collapse. The moment of truth came after a marathon weekend of open houses. She had spent 12 hours on her feet in the Florida heat. By Sunday night, her right ankle wasn't just puffy. It had ballooned to twice its normal size. The skin felt hot, like a stovetop left on low, and it had turned a terrifying shade of deep, bruised purple. Brenda was panicked. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching her phone, wanting to call 911. But then, The fear hit her. Not just the fear of the doctor, but the fear of the bill. She had a high-deductible insurance plan. She knew that an ER visit, the ultrasounds, the specialized blood work, it could easily cost her $5,000 or $6,000 out of pocket. That is a commission on a house she hadn't even sold yet. She was terrified of the medical bankruptcy that drains so many American families. So she waited. She took some aspirin, propped her leg up on a pillow, and prayed it would go away. By Monday morning, she couldn't even put her foot on the floor. The pain was like a hot poker being driven into her calf. When she finally hobbled into the ER, the doctor didn't give her a cream or tell her to get a pedicure. He gave her a wake-up call that shook her to her core. He told her she was in the early stages of chronic venous insufficiency, or CVI. He told her that if she had waited any longer, she might have been looking at a life-threatening blood clot or a permanent loss of mobility. I'm not fear-mongering when I tell you that Brenda's story is the story of millions of Americans. We ignore the signs because we're afraid of the cost, but the cost of ignoring them is so much higher. We are talking about losing your independence, relying on your kids to wipe your mouth, and bankrupting your family just to stay in an assisted living facility. To understand why this is so dangerous, we have to look at your body like a high-performance machine, a classic American V8 engine. Your heart is the fuel pump, sending oxygen-rich blood all the way down to your big toe. That is the easy part. Gravity helps it get there. But the real miracle and the real danger is how that blood gets back up. Your veins are not just hollow pipes. They are a complex plumbing system that has to fight gravity every single second of your life. I want you to visualize this in slow motion. Inside your veins, there are thousands of tiny, delicate valves. Think of them as translucent, one-way trap doors. In a healthy body, your calf muscle acts like a second heart. When you walk, that muscle contracts and squeezes the vein like a tube of toothpaste, forcing the blood upward. The trap door opens, the blood rushes through, and then snap. The valve shuts tight so the blood cannot fall back down. But here's where the breakdown begins. Because Brenda stood on hard surfaces for decades, and because her diet was high in salt, her blood pressure was constantly redlining. That internal pressure began to hammer against those delicate trap doors. Imagine a rhythmic, heavy sledgehammer hitting a wooden fence. Eventually, the wood splinters. In Brenda's veins, those valves started to warp. They didn't snap shut anymore. They began to sag and fail. Now, look at the disaster in slow motion. Instead of the blood flowing smoothly back to the heart, it starts to tumble backward. This is called reflux. It is like a sewer line backing up into your kitchen sink. The blood begins to pool in the lower leg. It sits there. It becomes stagnant. And when blood doesn't move, it changes. It turns from a life-giving fluid into a thick, dark, toxic sludge. It is like old burnt oil sitting at the bottom of a rusty engine. As that sludge builds up, the pressure inside the vein becomes unbearable. The vein walls, which should be elastic and strong, start to stretch out and thin. They become like a balloon that has been blown up way too many times. They bulge and twist, which is what you see on the surface as those ropes. But the real damage is happening deep inside. The pressure becomes so intense that the liquid part of your blood, the plasma, actually begins to leak through the vein walls into the surrounding flesh. Think about that. It's like a pipe bursting behind your drywall and soaking the insulation. This fluid is full of metabolic waste and red blood cell fragments. As those red blood cells die in your tissue, they release iron. That iron literally rusts inside your flesh. That is why Brenda's skin turned purple and brown. It was the color of internal decay. This is the point of no return. When that tissue stays soaked in toxic fluid for too long, the skin cells start to die. Your skin becomes thin and brittle like parchment paper. One tiny bump against a coffee table, one scratch from a pet, and the skin just zips open. It turns into a venous ulcer, a weeping, rotting hole that won't heal because the circulation is too broken to fix it. Friends, listen to me closely. This is how you lose your leg. This is how you end up in a wheelchair, unable to walk through the front doors of the houses you're trying to sell, or unable to chase your grandkids in the backyard. Brenda realized that if she couldn't walk, she couldn't earn a commission. Her 401k would be devoured by specialized wound care and home health aides. Her dream of a strong and free retirement was dissolving because she thought her veins were just a beauty problem. Does this sound familiar? Do your legs feel like lead weights at the end of the day? Is there a ticking time bomb under your skin that you're trying to ignore? Your body is sending you a signal. Those bulging veins are not a cosmetic issue, they are a red alert from your vascular system. It is your body's way of saying the plumbing is failing, the engine is seizing up, and the structural integrity of your entire future is at risk. We cannot afford to wait until the skin turns purple. We cannot afford to wait until we are a burden on our families. We have to act while we still have the mobility to change our fate. Because listen to me closely, friends, that mobility is a gift that can be snatched away in the blink of an eye by something you might think is just an eyesore. I want you to look down at your legs right now. Do you see them? Those blue, twisting, rope-like cords bulging under your skin? Maybe you've been told they're just a sign of getting older. Maybe you think it's just a cosmetic issue, something to cover up with long pants even in the heat of a July BBQ. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm not fear-mongering, those veins are a siren. They are a distress signal from your vascular system warning you that the engine is starting to seize up. Let's talk about Mike. Mike is 48 years old, living right in the heart of Columbus, Ohio. Mike is a quintessential American worker, a long-haul truck driver who spent 25 years behind the wheel of a massive 18-wheeler, moving the freight that keeps this country running. Mike loves his life. He loves coming home on the weekends, firing up the grill for his grandkids, and sitting down to watch the Buckeyes on a Saturday afternoon. But Mike's job has a dark side. He spent 11 hours a day, every day, sitting in that driver's seat. His legs are stationary, his calf muscles are silent, and his diet, well, you know how it is on the road. It's fast food, it's salty snacks, and it's endless cups of black coffee just to stay alert. A few years ago, Mike noticed these bulging veins on his inner thigh. He joked about them with his buddies at the truck stop, calling them his tough man veins. He'd get these nasty cramps at night, what we call Charlie horses, that would make him jump out of bed in his suburban Ohio home, clutching his calf in agony. He just figured he was dehydrated. He'd drink some water, take an aspirin, and get back in the rig. He didn't realize that his body was desperately trying to tell him that his internal plumbing was failing. Friends, I want to take you inside Mike's leg for a moment, and I want you to see this in slow motion, because this is happening inside millions of Americans right now. Think of your heart as a powerful V8 engine. It pumps fresh, oxygen-rich blood down to your toes with incredible pressure. But once that blood reaches your feet, it has to make a long, grueling journey back up against the relentless pull of gravity. To do this, your veins have these tiny, delicate, one-way valves. Think of them like the check valves in a basement sump pump. They open to let blood flow toward the heart, and then they snap shut to prevent it from falling back down. But in Mike's case, just like we saw with the vascular breakdown earlier, those valves were under constant crushing pressure. Because he was sitting for 11 hours, his calf muscles weren't contracting. You see, your calf muscle is actually your second heart. When you walk, it squeezes those veins and pushes the blood upward. Without that movement, the blood just sits there. It pools. Now, look closely at what happens next. Because that blood is pooling, the pressure inside the vein starts to skyrocket. It's like overinflating a garden hose. The walls of the vein, which are thin and elastic, begin to stretch. They stretch and they thin out until they become floppy. And when the vein stretches, those tiny check valves can no longer meet in the middle. There's a gap. Now, when the blood tries to go up, it leaks right back down through the gap. This is what we call venous reflux. Imagine a crowded hallway where everyone is trying to walk in one direction, but suddenly the floor tilts and people start sliding backward, crashing into the people behind them. It's chaos. The blood isn't flowing smoothly anymore. It's swirling. It's creating eddies and turbulence. This stagnant, swirling blood causes the vein to twist and turn to accommodate the extra volume, creating those rope-like bulges you see on the surface. But the real danger isn't the bulge. The real danger is what's happening to the blood itself. One night, Mike was on a cross-country haul, somewhere on a dark stretch of I-70. Suddenly, he felt a sharp, stabbing pain right behind his knee. It wasn't a cramp this time. It felt like someone had driven a hot nail into his leg. He pulled over at a lonely rest stop, his heart hammering against his ribs. He thought he was having a heart attack. He rolled up his pant leg and what he saw terrified him. That bulging vein wasn't just blue anymore. It was angry. It was red, hot to the touch, and when he pressed on it, it felt like a hard, solid cord, like a piece of rebar buried under his skin. Mike was terrified. He was hundreds of miles from home, alone in a dark parking lot, staring at a leg that looked like it belonged to someone else. He did what any of us would do. He called 911. As the sirens echoed across the highway, all he could think about was his mortgage. He thought about his CDL, his commercial driver's license. If he couldn't drive, he couldn't earn. He thought about his 401k, the money he and his wife had spent 30 years painstakingly saving so they wouldn't be a burden on their kids. Was a single hospital stay about to wipe all of that out? When he got to the ER, the doctor didn't give him good news. Mike was diagnosed with superficial thrombophlebitis. Now listen to me closely because this is the part that should make your hair stand on end. The doctor told Mike that the blood in that bulging vein had become so stagnant, so still, that it had begun to solidify. Let's look at this in slow motion. Inside your blood, you have these tiny proteins called fibrinogen and little cells called platelets. When blood is moving fast, they stay apart. When blood sits still, when it pools in those damaged bulging veins, it becomes like a stagnant pond. Platelets start to get sticky. They begin to clump together. They snag the fibrinogen, which turns into long, sticky strands of fibrin. It's like a spider web forming inside your vein. This web starts to trap red blood cells. What was once a smooth, life-giving liquid turns into a thick red sludge. Then it turns into a jelly. Finally, it becomes a hard, rubbery plug. That hard cord Mike felt, that was his blood turned into a solid mass inside his body. The doctor's warning was stern. Mike, if we don't treat this right now, this clot in the surface vein can tail into the deep veins. And if a piece of that sludge breaks off and travels to your lungs, you won't be worrying about your CDL. You won't be worrying about your 401k. You'll be gone. Does this sound familiar? Have you felt that heaviness in your legs at the end of the day? Have you noticed your socks leaving deep indentations in your ankles? That is the fluid being forced out of your failing veins and into your tissues. It is the beginning of a breakdown that leads exactly where Mike ended up. Mike spent 3 days in the hospital. He survived, but he was lucky. He walked away with thousands of dollars in medical bills and a terrifying realization. He was 1 inch away from a nursing home. He was 1 inch away from losing the independence he had worked his entire life to secure. Friends, we cannot afford to look at our bodies and see only the surface. We have to understand the machinery. When those veins bulge, it's not just an old age thing. It is a sign that your blood is turning into a ticking time bomb. It is a sign that the valves in your life are failing. You have to ask yourself, Is ignoring these signs worth the risk of your family having to sell the house to pay for your long-term care? Is it worth the risk of never being able to walk your granddaughter down the aisle because you're confined to a wheelchair with a leg that won't heal? We have to act. We have to understand that the rust in our V8 engine isn't just going to go away on its own. We have to move, we have to support our circulation, and we have to listen to the whispers before they become the scream of a 911 siren in the middle of the night. Because once that blood turns to sludge, the clock starts ticking. And as Mike from Ohio learned the hard way, you never know how much time you have left before the system finally gives out. And if you think what happened to Mike was an isolated incident or just a streak of bad luck, I need you to listen to me very closely right now. Because what happened next to a woman named Sarah, a 63-year-old retired schoolteacher living just outside of Dallas, Texas, is the phone call I pray you never have to make. Friends, Sarah is just like many of you. She spent 30 years standing in front of a chalkboard, shaping young minds, and now that she's retired, she spends her mornings in her backyard garden, tending to her roses and tomatoes in that sweltering Texas heat. She's the heart of her family, the one who hosts the Sunday BBQs, the one who never misses a grandson's football game. But for years, Sarah had a secret she kept hidden under long capri pants and flowy skirts, even in the middle of a triple-digit Dallas summer. She had these bulging, rope-like veins snaking up her calves. At first, they were just tiny little spider veins, no bigger than a piece of thread. She thought, oh, that's just part of getting older. It's just cosmetic. I'm not wearing a bikini anyway, so why worry? Does that sound familiar? Have you looked down at your own legs and thought the same thing? But then, the color started to change. Around her ankles, the skin began to turn a dark, rusty brown, almost like a permanent stain. She even noticed a small, crusty sore near her ankle bone that just wouldn't heal no matter how much Neosporin she put on it. She ignored it because she was busy. She was busy living the American dream she worked 30 years to earn. But inside her body, a catastrophic mechanical failure was reaching its breaking point. I want to take you inside Sarah's leg for a moment, and I want you to visualize this in slow motion, like a high-speed camera capturing a car crash before the metal even crunches. Think of your veins not just as pipes, but as a sophisticated series of one-way valves, much like the precision fuel injectors in a high-performance American V8 engine. These valves have one job: to fight gravity and push blood back up to your heart. When you're walking through the grocery store or mowing the lawn, your calf muscles act as a pump, squeezing those veins to move the blood upward. But in Sarah's case, after years of standing in that classroom, those valves began to wear out. Imagine a heavy oak door that's been slammed too many times. Eventually, the hinges sag and the latch doesn't catch. That's what happened in Sarah's veins. The valves became incompetent. Instead of snapping shut to hold the blood up, they stayed slightly ajar. Now, look at the physics of this disaster. Because the valve didn't close, gravity took over. Every time Sarah's heart beat, a little bit of blood leaked backward, pooling in the lower part of her leg. This is what we call venous reflux. But it's not just extra blood. Imagine a plumbing system where the water stops moving and just sits in the pipes for weeks. It gets stagnant. It gets thick. It turns into a dark, oxygen-depleted sludge. As that sludge builds up, the pressure inside Sarah's veins reached a critical mass. Think of a garden hose with a kink in it while the faucet is turned on full blast. The walls of the vein began to stretch and thin out. They started to bulge outward, creating those ropes she saw on the surface. But the real damage was happening at the cellular level. That high pressure was actually forcing red blood cells out through the walls of the veins and into the surrounding skin tissue. Listen to me, this is why her ankles turned brown. Those red blood cells died in her tissue and released iron. Her skin was literally rusting from the inside out. That's what that staining is. It's called hemosiderin deposition. and it is a flashing red siren that your vascular system is in a state of total collapse. While Sarah was focused on the upcoming family BBQ, marinating brisket and setting the patio table, that stagnant sludge in her deep veins was undergoing a terrifying chemical transformation. When blood stops moving, the clotting factors, the body's natural glue, start to clump together. It starts as a microscopic speck, but in the slow-moving current of Sarah's leg, it grew. It became a jagged, gelatinous mass clinging to the wall of her vein like a piece of rusted debris in a pipe. This was a deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. A silent, ticking time bomb lodged right in her calf. The day of the collapse started like any other Saturday. Sarah was moving fast, carrying a heavy tray of iced tea out to the porch. Suddenly, she felt a sharp, localized cramp in her leg, like a Charlie horse that wouldn't quit.
She brushed it off.
But then, as she reached for the sliding glass door, the bomb finally detonated. The clot broke loose. In a split second, that mass of congealed blood was swept into the main highway of her circulatory system. It shot up past her knee, through her thigh, and raced toward her heart. It passed through the right chambers of her heart like a bullet and slammed into the narrow vessels of her lungs. Friends, this is the moment of pure, unadulterated terror. Sarah didn't just feel out of breath. She felt like she was being buried alive under 6 feet of Dallas dirt. She dropped the tray of tea, glass shattering everywhere, and clutched her chest. Her heart began to race at 140 beats per minute, trying desperately to push blood past the blockage in her lungs. She was gasping, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no air was getting into her blood. Her husband Jim heard the crash and ran out to find his wife turning a terrifying shade of blue on the patio. The panic in his voice as he dialed 911 is something no spouse should ever have to experience. "She's not breathing. My wife is dying." As the sirens wailed down their quiet suburban street, Sarah wasn't thinking about the BBQ anymore. In those hazy, terrifying moments in the back of the ambulance, as the paramedics shoved a tube down her throat and pumped her chest, a different kind of fear set in. The fear of what comes next. She saw the look on the ER doctor's face in the trauma bay. It wasn't the look you want to see. It was the look of someone fighting a losing battle. And as she drifted in and out of consciousness, the reality of the American healthcare system began to loom as large as the medical crisis itself. She thought about their 401k. She thought about the house they had finally paid off last year. She knew that 1 week in the ICU, the specialized scans, the clot-busting drugs that cost thousands of dollars per dose, and the round-the-clock nursing care could wipe out 3 decades of savings in a matter of days. She saw the nightmare scenario, being discharged not to her beautiful garden but to a sterile, fluorescent-lit nursing home because she could no longer walk. She imagined her daughter having to quit her job to change her bandages and wipe her mouth. The loss of independence is a fate many seniors fear more than death itself, and Sarah was staring it right in the face. When the dust finally settled and the doctors were able to stabilize the pulmonary embolism, the vascular surgeon stood at the foot of her bed with a very stern warning. He pointed to those bulging veins on her legs, the ones she thought were just cosmetic. "Sarah," he said, "these veins were the smoke. The clot was the fire. You ignored the smoke for 10 years, and today, the whole house almost burned down." He explained that because the damage to her veins was so advanced, what we call chronic venous insufficiency, she wouldn't just be taking a pill and going home. She was looking at a lifetime of expensive blood thinners that carry their own risks of internal bleeding. She was looking at painful weekly unaboot compression wraps for that non-healing sore on her ankle, which was actually a venous ulcer. If that ulcer got infected, she was looking at the very real possibility of amputation. Friends, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you this because Sarah's story is being repeated in every town in America, from Dallas to Des Moines. We have been conditioned to think that our legs are just things that carry us around, and as long as they don't hurt too much, we're fine. But those bulging veins? Those discolored ankles? That's your body screaming for help. That is your check engine light flashing red while you're driving 70 miles per hour down the interstate. If you ignore the rust in your pipes, if you let your blood turn to stagnant sludge because you're too busy or too afraid of the doctor, you're gambling with everything you've worked for. You are gambling with your ability to play with your grandkids. You are gambling with your home and your retirement savings. Listen to me closely. Vascular failure doesn't happen overnight. It is a slow, methodical destruction of your circulatory system. It starts with a valve that doesn't quite close. It progresses to a vein that stretches and thins. It turns into a dark stain on your skin as your own blood cells rust in your tissues. And it ends in a trauma bay with a 911 call and a mountain of medical debt that will haunt your family for a generation. Sarah survived, but her life will never be the same. She can't garden for more than 10 minutes without her legs throbbing in pain. She lives in constant fear that another plug is forming in her veins, waiting to travel to her brain and cause a stroke. You do not want to be Sarah. You do not want your family to have to make the choice between paying for your specialized wound care or paying for your grandson's college tuition. So, before we move into the specific life-saving rules you must follow to reverse this damage before it's too late, I want you to take a long, hard look at your own legs. Don't look away. If you see the ropes, if you see the stains, if you see the swelling that doesn't go away after a night's sleep, you're standing on a fault line, and the ground is starting to move. Now, let's talk about exactly how we stop the sludge, how we fix the hinges on those valves, and how you can reclaim your health so you never have to hear the sound of those 911 sirens coming for you. Because once that blood turns to sludge, the clock starts ticking, and you never know how much time you have left before the system finally gives out. Hear the sound of those 911 sirens coming for you. Because once that blood turns to sludge, the clock starts ticking, and you never know how much time you have left before the system finally gives out. Friends, listen to me very closely, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between enjoying your retirement in your own backyard or spending it in a sterile hospital room, watching your hard-earned 401k vanish into a mountain of medical bills. Does this sound familiar? You look down at your legs and you see those blue, twisting ropes. You tell yourself it's just because you've worked hard. You tell yourself it's just cosmetic. But Brenda from Orlando thought the same thing while she was showing those luxury homes, right up until her ankle turned purple and she couldn't stand. Mike from Ohio thought his night cramps were just from driving his rig, right up until a blood clot threatened to take his CDL and his livelihood away. And Sarah, God bless her, Sarah thought she was just getting older until she collapsed in her Dallas kitchen because a clot from her leg traveled to her lungs. I am not fear-mongering. I'm telling you the truth that the big pharmaceutical companies won't. You don't need a $50,000 surgery today to save your life tomorrow. You need to understand the mechanics of your own body, and you need to act now, while it's still free and while you still have your mobility. The first rule I need you to follow, and it won't cost you a single penny, is what I call the $0 gravity flush. I want you to think about your legs like the plumbing in an old house. Over 30, 40, or 50 years, those pipes get tired. In your veins, you have these tiny, microscopic swinging doors called valves. Their only job is to push blood up against gravity, toward your heart. But when you stand all day like Brenda or sit for hours like Mike, gravity wins. Blood starts to pool. Imagine it in slow motion. The pressure builds and builds until those tiny valves are literally bent backward. They lose their seal. Now, instead of a smooth flow, the blood starts leaking back down, crashing into the blood below it. This creates a high-pressure zone that stretches your vein walls until they bulge out like a garden hose about to burst. To fix this, every single evening I want you to lie flat on your back on your sofa or your bed and prop your legs up against the wall at a 45-degree angle. Do this for exactly 15 minutes. Why? Because you're finally giving those exhausted valves a break. You're letting gravity do the work for them. You will actually feel the heaviness leaving your limbs as that stagnant, deoxygenated blood, which is basically toxic waste at this point, finally drains back toward your heart to be refreshed. If you don't do this, that stagnant pool of blood stays there, it gets thicker, it gets hotter, and that is exactly how a clot begins to form. Do you want to risk a stroke because you couldn't find 15 minutes to put your feet up? Now, the second rule is even more critical if you're someone who spends a lot of time sitting or driving. I call this the hydraulic calf pump. Listen to me, your heart is a magnificent pump, but it's not strong enough to get blood all the way back up from your ankles on its own. It needs help. Your calf muscles are actually your second heart. When you walk, those muscles contract and squeeze the deep veins in your legs like a tube of toothpaste, shooting the blood upward. But if you're sitting at a desk or behind the wheel of a truck, that pump is turned off. The blood just sits there, turning into thick, dark sludge. Here is the life-saving move you can do while you're watching the evening news or sitting at the kitchen table. It's called the seated ankle flex. You're going to lift your toes as high as they can go, then point them down as hard as you can. Do this 30 times every hour. I want you to visualize what's happening inside. Every time you flex, you're physically crushing those veins and forcing the blood to move. You're preventing the sludge factor. Think about Mike, pulling over at that rest stop and agonizing pain. If he had just engaged that second heart every hour, he might not have been facing the loss of his career and his savings. It's a simple mechanical fix for a mechanical problem. Rule number 3 is something you probably haven't heard from your doctor, but it's the secret to keeping your blood from turning into a ticking time bomb. It's the osmotic flush. Friends, we love our salt. We love our BBQ and our processed snacks. But when you have a high-sodium diet, that salt enters your bloodstream and acts like a sponge. It pulls water out of your cells and into your blood vessels, which sounds like a good thing, but it's not. It increases the volume of your blood so much that the pressure inside those weak, bulging veins becomes unbearable. It's like trying to force a gallon of water through a straw. Eventually, the pressure is so high that the fluid leaks out of the veins and into the surrounding tissue. That's why your socks leave those deep, painful indentations at the end of the day. That's why Sarah's skin started to turn dark and stained. That staining is actually iron from your red blood cells being crushed through the vein walls and dying in your skin. To stop this, you have to flush the system. You need to drink 8 ounces of water for every cup of coffee or soda you have. But here's the trick. You must add a squeeze of fresh lemon. The potassium in that lemon helps your body balance the sodium and pull that excess fluid back into the vessels where it belongs. You're literally thinning the sludge. You're making your blood move like a mountain stream instead of a swamp. This costs pennies, but it could save you the hundreds of thousands of dollars a hospital stay for a pulmonary embolism costs. Finally, rule number 4 is the cold snap reset. This one takes a little courage, but it is a powerful tool for vascular health. At the end of your daily shower, I want you to turn the water to cold as you can stand it, and aim the spray directly at your calves and ankles for 60 seconds. Here is the slow-motion science. Your veins have tiny muscle fibers in their walls. When they get hit with that cold water, they go into a protective shock. They constrict instantly. This snap forces the blood out of the superficial bulging veins and into the deeper, stronger veins that can handle the flow. It's like a workout for your blood vessels. It keeps them elastic and strong rather than let them become stretched out and flabby like an old pair of socks. I want you to really think about what's at stake here. I'm talking to the grandfathers who want to walk their granddaughters down the aisle. I'm talking to the retirees who want to travel the country in an RV, not be confined to a motorized wheelchair. If you ignore those bulging veins, if you think they're just ugly, you're ignoring the smoke before the fire. The medical system in this country is designed to wait until you're in crisis, and then they will charge you every penny of your retirement to try and fix it. But you can be smarter than the system. You can start the gravity flush tonight. You can start the calf pump right now while you're watching this. You can choose the osmotic flush over that extra salty snack. Don't wait for the siren. Don't wait for the ER doctor to tell you that the damage is permanent. You have the power to fix your circulation, to keep your independence, and to protect your family's future. Take these rules, use them every single day, and let's keep those legs moving and that heart beating for many, many years to come. Listen to me closely. Your health is your wealth, and it is the only thing you truly own. Protect it. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1, those bulging veins are not a vanity issue. They are the external evidence of failing internal valves and a circulatory system in distress. Number 2, stagnant blood can quickly turn into life-threatening clots. So watch for warning signs like localized heat, swelling, or skin discoloration that doesn't go away. Number 3, keeping your blood moving is your best defense against the nursing home and medical bankruptcy. So prioritize vascular health today to protect your independence tomorrow. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal. It's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.